that's a great question, Dwaine. And that's why I'm so fortunate, because I think I have the best support of anybody who could be doing this. You know what I mean? None of this is possible without Grace. So I love Grace so much. And she's truly a partner and a team member in this journey, because got to remember, like, going through that whole year of not making money, wondering if you're doing the right thing, she was always there to support me. You know what I mean? And believed in me, even when my family didn't believe in me. And they don't say it, but you can tell. They're like, what is Zach doing? This seems, I mean, you leave all this money on the table to do this crazy little thing. And so anyway, so she's been extremely supportive. She's been like ride or die since day one. So she was all in, because she understands it too. When I explained to her, this is how you build long-term wealth and passive cash flow, and you multiply your equity, she believes in it. And so she's been immense. And I mean, not only in the support for the actual investing part, but we also started a monthly meetup in April of this year, and we've done 6 or 7 of them now, and it's grown pretty significantly. Well, Grace does all of our online marketing, all of our investor relations. For the meetup, she does all of the logistics as far as setting up the sponsors, getting the tickets sold, getting the venue, getting the food, all that stuff. So I can just focus on actually looking at deals and touring deals, underwriting deals, and making offers and doing that stuff. So she handles all that stuff. So it's a huge key. So if you're trying to do this, maybe it's not your spouse, but if you can find somebody who is really that support system, even if it's your business partner, right, who's totally committed, and I think that goes a long way.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Zach Haptonstall. Zach is the founder and president of ZH Multifamily, an experienced multifamily investor currently residing in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's a lead sponsor, general partner, and equity owner of over $35 million worth of apartment buildings in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Zach, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
Hey, thanks for having me, Dwaine. I appreciate it, man. I'm doing great. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was looking forward to. We spoke, I think, last month. We had a really good, I think it was like almost a 45-minute conversation, just kind of getting to know each other, learning about the Phoenix market, and just kind of getting to know each other. So, but the thing is, you have a very interesting backstory of how you got into the business and kind of the stuff that you're working on now, which is pretty exciting. So for the audience, would you mind just kind of running through your background and how you get started in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely don't have like a quote unquote real estate background. I've kind of been a little bit all over the place. So I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I pretty much lived here my entire life. I lived in a small town in Colorado for a bit on a football scholarship. I was playing football there. And I realized I wasn't going to make the NFL, Dwaine. So I said, okay, I need to go back. And I moved back to Phoenix. I wanted to be a sports reporter. So I got a journalism degree at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism here at Arizona State. And I was actually a live news anchor and a sports reporter on Arizona PBS for about 5-6 months. I hosted a show on Fox Sports Network Arizona, which was cool at first, being on TV and everything and the adrenaline and all that. And then I quickly realized that you don't make a lot of money doing that. You work crazy hours, very political. I had a lot of friends that were moving to a lot of these small markets, TV stations, and I could tell they just weren't happy. And so I was like, I don't want to do this. And so at the time, while I was going to school, I was delivering medical equipment nights and weekends, just a job I had to pay for school. And my boss was like, hey man, you can make good money doing healthcare marketing. So anyways, I graduate, decided I'm not going to pursue journalism. I have all this school debt, and I get a job as a hospice marketer. So I don't know if you're familiar with hospice care by chance, Dwaine. Basically healthcare. So it's a mobile service, nursing and caregiving for patients who have like end-of-life illnesses, okay? And this is all free for them through their Medicare. So my job is wake up in the morning, drive all around Phoenix, and just cold call walking into hospitals, doctors' offices, assisted living, et cetera, and build relationships with physicians, social workers, nurses. When they had somebody who needed hospice services, they call me, and I'm the first person to go and meet with that family and educate them on the services and get them signed up. So anyways, long story short, it sounds kind of weird, but hospice care is actually a very competitive and lucrative private business industry here in Phoenix. And Phoenix is actually the #1 market in the country for this type of business, just because the demographics, you have a lot of seniors here. The weather is great. It's very sunny. So anyways, I was very blessed at a young age to do really well in that. I started out as a marketer at that company. I then became the director of marketing. I then became a co-owner with the hospice company. So my early 20s, by the time I was 23, I bought a house. I'm making over $200K a year, making more than both my parents combined. Somebody who never really came from money or anything. I was very fortunate. I got my MBA. I paid off all my school. So I had no debt. I had a house. I was making over 200K. Very fortunate, but I just got burnt out. I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. On call 7 days a week, and I was no longer passionate about it. It was a grind. And so it was probably at least a year and a half. I knew I didn't want to keep doing that. But when you're making good money, and I feel like a lot of people that are listening to the show probably feel like this, like you're making good money, you get caught up in the rat race, you don't want to let that go. But I got to the point where I was like, screw it. I'm not happy. I have to make a move. And so January of 2018, last year, almost 24 months ago now, I said, okay, screw it. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to do this. And I don't have any time to even figure out what I want to do because this job consumes my life. And so I resigned in January of 2018. I sold my equity in the company. I had no plan at all, except at the time I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Assets and liabilities and passive income. And I was like, I need to find a way to create passive income. And so I decided, and keep in mind too, this is kind of an extreme version. So you don't have to do this to be successful by no means. And I'm younger. I'm engaged. Grace and I don't have any kids yet. We plan to have several. So I was in a unique situation. But I said, okay, I'm going to quit, sell the equity. I'm going to live off savings for the next 12 months. So that's what I did. I said, okay, I've got a good chunk of change here. And I basically started spacing out my haircuts, Dwayne. Stopped getting haircuts. I canceled my Spotify, canceled TV. So I cut all my costs however I could. And I decided I'm going to create passive income. And I honestly didn't even know what real estate investing was. I did have my real estate license, which I had got in 2016 as a backup plan, but I never used it. Okay, never had used it. Don't have any family in real estate. So I just started consuming as much content as I could. I wake up every morning and it was kind of like this helpless feelings. I'm like, what do I do today? Like there's no guidebook, you know what I mean, or outline of what to do. So I started listening to podcasts like yours, reading every book I can, audiobooks, articles, started cold calling people. Believe it or not, I was originally looking at flipping houses because I just didn't realize, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, that's real estate. And then I realized that's transactional. It's not passive income. Then I became very interested in mobile home parks. I cold called over 90 mobile home park owners here in the East Valley, East Phoenix, Mesa area. And like 4 or 5 of them answered. They all said, we don't want to sell, except for one guy who was kind of interested. And I tried to buy it on a seller carry. It didn't work out. So anyways, I went through this whole process until literally 6 months later, Dwayne. So 6 months go by. I'm just burning through cash, not knowing if I'm even doing the right thing. I lost all my confidence and like my sense of direction. I'm like, what am I doing? I was the man in healthcare, and now I'm just losing money. And I decided I was going to do multifamily. So I started cold calling brokers, lenders, property managers, building a team. And finally, I met a guy. His name's Robert. He also lives here in Scottsdale. He's like a higher net worth guy. And anyways, long story short, I went through this entire journey, okay, of just trying to figure out how to do this, trying to put the team together. October of 2018, so 10 months into this, we find a deal. It's a 36-unit, $3.4 million deal. And the deal actually penciled. I'd underwritten countless deals and nothing was penciling. This one did. I said, screw it. We got to put an offer in. So we put in an offer. And then the offer gets accepted. And we're like, oh, crap, like, what do we do now? Because we had never done this. And this is a $1.4 million raise. And so I'm $25,000 hard, non-refundable money. Robert's $25,000 hard, non-refundable money. And we're like 30 days into due diligence, and we're just calling. And I had met a lady named Elisa Zhang. She owned a 12-unit deal in Seattle, which she was selling. And she's like, hey, Zach, I heard you have this 36-unit in Phoenix. Why don't I sell my 12-unit, 1031 exchange it into your 36-unit, and we can do a tenant in common, a TIC structure. And she was going to bring about $650K from that 1031 exchange. So almost half the money. And I was like, that sounds great. Let's do it. What the hell is a tenant in common? Like, what's a TIC structure? So I had no idea what that was. But anyways, long story short, she 1031 exchanged. I found a few guys that put in 150. I personally put in $160K of my own cash, which was all the money I had left at that point, literally. I had about $260. I was renovating my house. I was living off of it. I bought into a mentorship program. And so I put all my money into this deal because at that point I was like, I believe in multifamily. I know it will work. I believe in this deal, but it's so hard to get that first deal. The barrier to entry is incredibly tough, right? And so I was like, if that's what it takes to get into the game, this is what I'm going to do. So I put $160K. We closed on it in February. While we were under contract in that deal, I realized, okay, I'm going to be completely out of liquidity after we close on this deal. All my money will be in this deal. How am I going to do the next deal? I need at least 50, 100K in order to syndicate something. And so I was just sitting one day and I told Grace, my fiance, I said, babe, we have to unload this house. So this is my first house. I lived in it for about 3 years. I was never going to sell it. I was at least going to keep it, rent it out. I really liked the house. I was like, screw it. I'm sitting on over 100K of equity in this house. I've lived in it for over 3 years, so I'll pay no capital gains if I sell it. So we listed it while I was under contract for the other deal. And so we closed on the first deal February. We found a portfolio of 2 deals in March. We get them under contract beginning of April. It was a 76 unit in Phoenix, and it was a 59 unit in Scottsdale. It was a $13.5 million portfolio. And anyways, my house closes 1 week, Dwaine, and the next, so I get over 100K. The next week, I wire $100,000 hard, non-refundable into earnest money for this portfolio deal. So I was like all in, you know what I mean? Because I believed in it. And I was like, screw it, I'm all in. And it sounds kind of crazy, but we had already done our due diligence. Everything looked clean. I believed in the deal. And so anyways, we did a syndication on the 76 unit deal. Okay. That was like a $6.6 million purchase price. I can't even remember, 6 million something. And we raised about a little bit over 3 million. And then we did another tenant in common deal, a tick structure on the Scottsdale deal. We closed on both of those. And that was a very long escrow just because the seller wanted to 1031 exchange both of those properties into one. Well, meanwhile, it was a 120-day escrow because he kept extending. Well, we had already raised the money in 60 days and we were just waiting. We found another deal, a 137-unit deal in Phoenix. It was a $17.5 million deal. We found that in like June. Yeah, June. We got under contract like end of June. And long story short, we raised the money. We closed on all 3 deals in August. So August 9th, we closed on the 59 unit and the 76 unit. And then literally 7 days later, 1 week later, August 16th, we closed on the 137 unit. And so that's kind of in the journey. It was like, it was 10 months of even getting a deal under contract or an accepted LOI, of just going through the adversity. But I learned so much and I gained so much confidence and knowledge, you know what I mean? And then going through that first one, you get a lot of experience and confidence of knowing what to expect. Because I've been the point person in all these deals as far as communicating with the broker, the lender, our attorney, the lender's counsel, all that. So kind of running the acquisition, so to speak. And so anyways, so after that first one, we gained a lot of momentum. Now we have a little bit over 300 units, all in Phoenix, about 35 million of assets under management. We've been very blessed. So we're looking for the next deal is kind of where we're at now.
Wow. When you first told me that story, I was just kind of blown away as far as kind of like the different things and the fact that you listed and sold the house and then used that cash to go into the next one. Well, before we kind of get a little deeper, because I have a lot of questions there, is like your fiance, like how does she feel? Because I know a lot of people are in a similar situation where they're trying to get, a spouse on board and kind of tell them like, this is what we're, so how do you kind of explain to a significant other, like, the game plan and, the kind of trust in you to kind of go through that process?
That's a great question, Dwaine. And that's why I'm so fortunate, because I think I have the best support of anybody who could be doing this. You know what I mean? None of this is possible without Grace. So I love Grace so much. And she's truly a partner and a team member in this journey, because got to remember, like going through that whole year of not making money, wondering if you're doing the right thing, she was always there to support me. You know what I mean? And believed in me, even when my family didn't believe in me. And they don't say it, but you can tell. They're like, what is Zach doing? This seems, you leave all this money on the table to do this crazy little thing. And so anyway, so she's been extremely supportive. She's been like ride or die since day one. So she was all in because she understands it too. When I explained to her, this is how you build long-term wealth and passive cash flow, and you multiply your equity, she believes in it. And so she's been immense. And I mean, not only in the support for the actual investing part, but we also started a monthly meetup in April of this year, and we've done 6 or 7 of them now, and it's grown pretty significantly. Well, Grace does all of our online marketing, all of our investor relations. For the meetup, she does all of the logistics as far as setting up the sponsors, getting the tickets sold, getting the venue, getting the food, all that stuff. So I can just focus on actually looking at deals and touring deals, underwriting deals, and making offers and doing that stuff. So she handles all that stuff. So it's a huge key. So if you're trying to do this, maybe it's not your spouse, but if you can find somebody who is really that support system, even if it's your business partner, right, who's totally committed, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And like I said, same goes my wife, but I have my business partner where we're just kind of splitting the roles. Like he's not like the real estate guy, but he's like the logistics and getting things going. He's the talkative guy. He's like really charismatic. So it's like, it just got to find a perfect blend that works out perfectly. So that's awesome. Really good story. Tell us about the Phoenix market. I've been, I know a couple of investors out there, very hot market, very, I would say higher price per unit, compared to other markets, very affluent in certain pockets. So is it in specifically like Phoenix, Glendale, or is it kind of the submarkets outside? And can you kind of explain to us what's the characteristics that you like about it?
Yeah, good question, Dwayne. Good question. And I think there's a lot of, for people who aren't in Phoenix, there's a lot of confusion, misconceptions about Phoenix, because to your point just now, Phoenix is huge. So when you say the Phoenix metro, that consists of at least 5 to 10 cities, if not more. Okay. So Phoenix is in Maricopa County. Maricopa County is the largest county in the entire country. Okay. So when people say Phoenix, they're really talking about Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, Glendale, Peoria, Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert. All of these cities are all like one big blob, okay, that are all in the Phoenix metro. Phoenix is central. So Phoenix is an actual city, but it's got all these other cities surrounding it. So when we're saying Phoenix, we're talking about all these different submarkets within this metro. And yeah, Phoenix is extremely competitive. I mean, I may be biased, but I think it's just as competitive or as heated as any market in the country. Like as far as like DFW, you always hear about that, and North Carolina, things like that. And so, I mean, as far as Phoenix, you do have to be careful because the fundamentals are extremely strong, and I'll talk about that. But it's also very diverse. You know what I mean? I mentioned how big it is. Well, it's like a checkerboard. So the thing with Phoenix is you could drive a couple miles and go from a very affluent area to like a C- or D class area. So you really need to know this, not only the submarkets, but the micro submarkets and the neighborhoods as well. But in general, yeah, Phoenix, you're going to pay a higher price per door than a lot of these other markets. It's not going to compare underwriting wise to these Midwest markets. So these Midwest markets, you're buying a lower price per door at a higher cap rate. It's more of a yield play in the Midwest in some of these areas. However, they're not as well insulated fundamentally. And what do I mean by that? Phoenix is at least top 3 or top 5 in every major category you want to see. Okay, so for population growth, the last 2 years, U.S. Census Bureau has named Phoenix or Maricopa County the #1 county in the entire nation for new population growth. And that's because you have a mass exodus of people coming from California, Washington State, a lot of these expensive blue states. People are moving to Phoenix because of better cost of living, politics, taxes, things like that. And then in addition to that, maybe almost more importantly, is that the job growth in Phoenix is tremendously strong. Okay, one of the big knocks on Phoenix, Dwayne, is that in the 2008 recession, people say, oh, well, it crumbled during the recession. And what they don't really realize is that single-family homes took a huge hit. There's no doubt. Multifamily did not suffer nearly as bad as single-family homes. The biggest reason for that real downturn in 2008 was because most of the jobs, there was a high concentration of construction jobs in Phoenix during the 2008 recession. Well, now, you look at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's 6% or less are in construction. So the top industries right now are tech, healthcare, financial services. You've got Google is building like a $1 billion warehouse out here in Mesa. You got Apple now has a huge warehouse out here in Mesa. Bill Gates just bought $80 million worth of land in the West Valley, west of Glendale, and he's going to be building a smart city. So a lot of people are now calling Phoenix the Silicon Desert because you have a lot of these companies are relocating. And then in addition to that, like I said, you've got insurance companies have their corporate headquarters here, financial services. So there's a ton of people here. The job growth supports it, and the cost of living is significantly cheaper than like a California or something like that. And so because of that, rents are skyrocketing. Okay, so for the last couple of years, last 2 years, there's been over an 8% year-over-year rent growth in Phoenix, which is second only to Vegas. Okay, Vegas is barely above that; it's less than 1% higher. However, I would argue, and I think most people would agree, Vegas is not as well insulated from like a fundamentals perspective. And so with Phoenix, the problem is, and it makes it tough for us, is that you've got a lot of institutional money coming here. You've got a lot of California investors. You have Canadian investors. And they're overpaying because they believe in the market. They know it's well insulated, and they may have a lower cost of capital than we have with our investors, meaning they don't need to get as high of returns as we do for our investors because the tax benefits are so tremendous. And so you're going to pay a higher price per door. In general, Phoenix is not going to be as high of a cash on cash market, but it's going to be significantly higher for an equity multiple for when you sell the deal or you refi it. And it's going to be a lot more insulated to an economic downturn than a lot of these other markets. And so, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I know I was talking to Neil Baugh a couple months ago, and he said, I like the way he put it. He said, Phoenix is a great 7-year hold model because it's so well insulated that it's going to do well regardless of a recession, but it doesn't pencil as well for like a 3 to 5 year hold model because you're paying a higher price per door. So with us, I mean, we're underwriting almost everything. You know, it's finding a needle in a haystack, just like in every market, just like you're looking at, Dwaine, on the markets you're looking at. It's not easy. So you have to really pick and choose, and you have to stress test these deals to make sure they make sense.
Those are, excellent points there, because you actually answered my other question will be kind of the business model will be a longer hold period. You mentioned talking with Neil. So instead of a 3 to 5 is more like a 7-year. And like I said, on the back end, because you have institutional cash coming in, they're seeing all the dynamics. They know it's a hot market, that they're willing to pay a higher price per unit. So you have that exit strategy on the back end. So that's awesome. Yeah, it's excellent points there. And like for people that's listening, that's been curious about this Arizona market. I mean, he just broke it down right there as far as kind of what's the intriguing parts of going in the market into that area there. So can you regarding like so since it's being more competitive, you have institutional cash coming in. Are you guys now looking at traditionally like stuff that's under 100 units? Or are you still looking at kind of below and above because of the competition?
Great question. Yeah, good question. I mean, our criteria right now is we want at least 100 units, and we want to be in the $20 to $30 million range. Okay, because it's kind of a tweener. So the 20 to 30 million is too big for most syndicators. I mean, the top private syndicators they're looking at the same stuff we are, but it's too big for most like private owners or private syndication groups, but it's actually too small for most of these institutional groups. So, I mean, I've talked to a lot of brokers here who say, like, when you get to 35, 45 million plus, that's when institutional is kind of looking at it. And so there's still very much a space for us to compete here. And we're competing a lot against a lot of private syndication groups just like us. But the thing is that because the market is so strong, the prices keep going up. The problem that we're seeing is that the price per door is so high because the market demands it. But the NOI for the property, the amount of money that the property is producing, doesn't necessarily match what the purchase price is, what they're asking. And so these deals are actually debt service constrained in order to get permanent loans, like agency loans. And for those of the listeners who don't really understand what that means, it basically means that you have a debt mortgage payment each month. And in order to qualify for certain debt programs or certain loan programs like agency debt, you basically have to have, okay, if it's $100 mortgage a month, the property needs to be spitting out $125. You know what I mean? Well, the problem is because the prices are so high and the NOI is not there for it, the only way to do a lot of these deals in Phoenix is to get bridge loans, okay? And in general, we are risk averse toward bridge loans just because we don't like the shorter term. We don't like a heavy lift. That's the thing. We think there's too much variable cost with doing a heavy lift, meaning you have a lot of construction, a lot of rehabs, because you have to hit very aggressive pro forma rents in order to make those deals work. We do like the bridge loan if we can do like a light lift. So right now, we haven't accepted LOI in a deal. We're going back and forth with the seller, and it's actually like a mom and pop owned property that has not been professionally managed. There's a lot of delinquency because he has not been managing it and collecting the rents, but he's owned it for so long, he's just cash flowing like a beast. He doesn't care. And so this deal will not qualify for permanent agency debt, which by the way, all 4 of our deals this year, Dwaine, have all been Freddie Mac agency loans, okay? But it will not qualify because that debt service constraint like I was talking about. So we're actually modeling it with a bridge, but it's not a heavy lift. It's actually a very light value add where the play is to simply go in there and manage it correctly. Put in professional management, collect, burn off the loss to lease, meaning that the rents are not all the way up to market like they could be because he hasn't been pushing it. And then just do some exterior amenities, maybe some light value add on the interiors. But it's a very safe business plan, we feel like, because our loan term is 3 + 1 + 1, meaning we have at least 3 years, 5 years if we want it for this bridge. It's a non-recourse loan, and it's 3 years of interest only. Whereas a lot of these bridges may be 1 or 2 years, and you gotta do the renovations and then refi out. Well, as you know, if the market, if there's a downturn, Dwayne, and financing could dry up, you don't want to get caught in a bridge loan. You won't be able to refi out of it. So basically, long story short, I know that was a very lengthy answer. A lot of guys are doing bridge loans, and we simply cannot compete with it because they're too aggressive with the underwriting. So we just have to be patient. We're underwriting every single deal that hits market and off market. We get a lot of off market deal flow now, fortunately. We're underwriting and we're putting in offers where it makes sense. So you just got to be patient, but you also have to keep attacking. So
nice. I know that Phoenix, Arizona is your backyard. You know everything about it. Are you guys possibly venturing out to look at other markets due to just looking for deal flow, or are you just kind of going to keep patient and then look for stuff that come on your desk?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, we've talked about it a lot the last couple months, honestly, because I mean, we closed on the last deal in the middle of August. And I mean, we've underwritten over 20 deals that we've actually dug into. We've made a few offers, nothing we can't really get close on. So, I mean, we've looked at like Tucson, which is a submarket south of Phoenix. Tucson is okay. Honestly, we don't really like it. We don't think it's as well insulated as Phoenix, but it's okay. You have to just underwrite it differently. It's more of a yield play. We've talked about Vegas, things like that. We don't want to be too far, honestly. So I know there's a lot of guys that are doing deals in other states, and I'm not saying you can't do it. I think for our comfort zone, we're not experts, right? We're trying to establish a track record. We want to be conservative. We want to go full cycle. We want to give returns back to our investors and do a good job. So because it's a long-term game. So we feel like our advantage is being local boots on the ground with two of us here, and that we know this market. So as of right now, we're not looking in other markets, but we've really talked about it. So we'll see how it goes in 2020. Ideally, we can find a deal here soon and keep going in Phoenix.
Awesome. As far as kind of like your process, you have an amazing story of how you kind of just from your entrepreneurial kind of spirit and kind of going through all these different hoops to get the job done. Was some things that you would do differently if you did all over again? Or I know you learned a lot on the way and then you're now successful in this venture. Would you do it different if you had the chance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think about that a lot because it's not necessary to completely quit your job and only do this full time, because you go kind of crazy some days. You're like, what do I do? You know what I mean? There's only so much you can do. There's only so many deals you can underwrite. And if it doesn't pencil, it doesn't pencil. There's only so many brokers you can think of. So you have to really attack, but you have to, it's kind of an oxymoron. You have to attack, but you have to be patient. And so, I mean, obviously now I'm very blessed. I don't regret anything I did, because I think the way I did it, I kind of burned the ships behind me. And I said, I'm not going back no matter what. I'll figure it out. And it was kind of like survival mode mindset. But I think, I mean, I wouldn't do anything different necessarily, but I also wouldn't have been opposed to getting some type of job or income during that time too, just because it relieves pressure and relieves stress to keep you going. So, I mean, if you're listening, you don't have to be so radical or just quit your job or do anything like that. And you have to remember, I was fortunate. I had relentlessly saved money. Like I was on the Dave Ramsey plan, like a single dude for a while. I was just saving money. So I was living off of that. Most people can't do that, especially if you have and so, I mean, I think I'm happy because I was patient. I learned a lot, and I feel like we've done it the right way. All of our deals are performing. We're about to list our first deal in the first quarter, and we're on track to double our money in like probably 14 to 18 months, depending on when it sells. So, I mean, we've been doing well, but I mean, I think you don't have to go all in like that necessarily. You can have other sources of income.
Awesome. Yeah, that's just, like I said, it's a great story and kind of just the way you put it together. So what's kind of like a typical day for, I know you're underwriting tons of deals, you're looking at a whole bunch of different stuff, you're doing shows like this. Can you run us through a typical day for you? And do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I do have a pretty strict morning routine, which I think is like the key to my success. And I started doing this last year, and I think I talked to you about it before, Dwayne. I've talked to a lot of guys about it. I read a book called Miracle Morning last year, and I've been following that book. So basically what I'll do is I'll typically wake up somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30, usually around 5, and I'll I drink a bunch of water, wash my face. I go upstairs to my office, and I'll just basically sit in silence, and I'll pray, and I'll meditate. I'm Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. So I'm big on prayer and just thinking about that stuff. And then I have a journal, and I'll journal like my thoughts, any of my anxieties, my fears, my doubts that I have for that day. I mean, even doing these meetups, it's nerve wracking sometimes. You have a lot of people coming. So I'll just put all that out there. I'll put my goals on there. And then I meal prep my breakfast for the entire week, every weekend. So I meal prep like a bunch of turkey, bacon, eggs, things like that, and put it in the fridge. So then I'll go down, eat my breakfast, and then I'll work out. Okay, so I'll do a workout, and I always listen to an audiobook or like a podcast while I'm working out. So whether that's like a cardio or I go to the gym, whatever. That way I can I get content, get my mind going. And then it just depends. After that gets my mind set. Okay, that's kind of like a mental refresh. It releases the endorphins. It makes me calm. It gives me clarity of thought. And that's huge for me, honestly. If I don't do that, I feel like a different person all day.
Mm-hmm.
It affects the rest of my day. So it just depends. I mean, it could be touring, could be doing asset management. I actually just took a position as the president of a hospice company. So I'm back in healthcare because to our conversation earlier, Dwaine, after we closed on the last deal in August, we've been looking for deals, but I was just getting bored, man. I was going crazy again. I was like, man, when we had all these deals under contract, it's like every day is like adrenaline and you're going and it's fun. But then when it settles down, yeah, we have weekly phone calls to our property management company. Robert or I stop by our properties. One of us stops there at least once a week, but asset management slows down as compared to acquisitions, right? And so now I have a president of a hospice organization. So it's very flexible where I'm out in the field and I'm also doing real estate. So for me, it actually has helped me be more efficient because I'm actually time blocking better. I feel like, you know what I mean? Where I've got two things going and I've got a high income, which I could reinvest into real estate. So that's kind of like a typical day. And then usually I have a Calendly link, just like you do, Dwaine, where people can schedule a call. And so Grace is really good. My fiance Grace is good about outreach. She's constantly reaching out to people on social media or online and setting up calls. So I'll usually have at least 1 to 3 calls a night, like between 5 to 8 p.m., just with different people, whether they're investors or maybe they're just trying to get started. I'm always happy to help and give guidance however I can. Or whatever. So people will set stuff up. So that's kind of how I try to be productive too. So
nice. Yeah, that's lovely to hear. So what do you say with all the success, all the tribulations you went through, and like I said, all this hard work that you kind of put forward, what do you say that you're most grateful for?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Well, I'm extremely grateful for Grace, my fiance. None of it would be possible without her, honestly. I'm grateful for God, honestly, because just prayer and faith got me through a lot of the adversity. And I'm grateful for a lot of stuff. It sounds cheesy, Dwaine, but I'm grateful for like the quote unquote journey. You know what I mean? Because it really did change. Like your whole mind shift changes when you go through that, because you have to go through the adversity to kind of like toughen your mindset and toughen your skin so that you don't listen to other people and you don't really care what they say within reason. You know what I mean? I mean, originally I was petrified of doing large commercial buildings and these large dollar signs. Like I don't come for money. I don't have a rich uncle or anything. So I didn't know anything like this, you know what I mean? But it was just by focusing on that for several months and giving myself no outs, you know what I mean? That my mind kind of grew and evolved to believe I could do that. And then meeting other people who are doing it, you're like, you know, I could do this too, but you have to go through the process and you just can't quit. It's like with anything. It's like if you want to go on a diet, you know what I mean? Or you want to work out or whatever goal, you have to just kind of keep grinding on it and be patient. So I'm just grateful for that whole process because I feel like that was the toughest part. And now I'm just trying to find other ways to kind of push my comfort zone. Find that.
I like that a lot. So Zach, how do we get in touch with you? I know we'll put the information on the show notes, but is there any information that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Dwaine. I mean, I'm always happy to help out. You can visit our website. It's zhmultifamily.com, zhmultifamily.com, no hyphens. And you can schedule a call on there. Reach out to me on LinkedIn and schedule a call. You can also text me. If you text me, I'll get back to you usually within 24, 48 hours and we can set up a call. My phone number is 602-859-5458. Once again, that's 602-859-5458. Again, I'm just happy to bring value however I can. I'm not trying to sell you anything or anything like that. I don't have an education program. So yeah, reach out to me wherever you can. My email is also Zach, Z-A-C-H at zhmultifamily.com. Zach at zhmultifamily.com.
Awesome. Zach, it was like I said, the reason I had to be on this, because I said, you had a tremendous story. You love to give back. I mean, just the the call that we had prior to this. I mean, we just went back and forth with so much stuff. We learned about each other so much, and really appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your knowledge and your experience and learning more about the Phoenix marketplace. People, if you want to get in touch with them, check the show notes, and we'll make sure to blast this out to our newsletter and our next meetup. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Zach, I really appreciate you taking the time early this morning. And look forward to following your success, and have a great week, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
You too. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, man.
All right. Take care, my man. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.